Hi there and welcome to another Gwent video. My name is Richard, or Moxfire if you want to call me by my game name. Today we're doing another Gwent video. This one is a deck tech based on Dale's Disco King deck. We're using the Gwentlemen's meta snapshot to go through and go deck by deck off the major archetypes, show you the deck itself, explain how the deck should work, play a game with the deck, as well as we're also creating a budget core of the deck to show new players what cards you need to invest in first to get a functional core that you can use using other cards to plug in the holes that you have to climb the ladder and get the rest of the cards that you need to be able to build the deck. So we are looking at Dale's Disco King. Dale's Disco King is a Skellige deck that features King Bran. King Bran allows you to discard up to 3 cards from your deck and add 1 base strength to them. This is the main reason this got changed in the last patch. This is the main reason this deck works. Gives you 3 extra discards. The whole idea is to discard as many times as you possibly can to thin your deck, while at the same time buffing your Morkvarg. Using your very strong Morkvarg, your Roach that continuously gets stronger, saving your gold power from Igni and Siri Dash for the last round, and in the interim just winning through just sheer buffing and dropping things on the board. So we'll start out with all the bronze cards. We have the Clan Heime Skald. He is very similar to a Hawker healer if you've ever seen one of those. He adds 2 strength to all other gold units on the row. He's 4 strength and he's agile. So you can put him on either the front row or the back row. Generally, you have nothing in the middle row, so there's no reason to put him there. You want to use him when you have the most units on the board, so the round where you're committing the most resources to winning the round, which usually will be the first or second round, depending on how the match goes. You have your Clan A Crate Raiders. These are the cards that you want to target with your discards. So if you have 2 Raiders and your Morkvarg in your deck, what you'll do is you'll use your King Brand to discard the Raider, Morkvarg, and because when they get discarded, they actually get resurrected, they just go right onto your board. So you get no negative consequence for discarding these. So these are your primary targets for those. Also, if you happen to have them in your hand, they're really nice targets for Irmoin or Severange as well. So we have the Clan, I don't even know how to say that, Armorsmith. He's agile, immune to weather, reset all weakened non-gold units on the row to base strength. He is basically your anti-weather mechanic. You drop him on the row where something, if they've been rained in the back row, you drop him down, boom, all your guys go back up to base strength. Because this deck relies so heavily off of base strength, generally that's all you need. You don't need to worry about trying to rebuff your guys. You get the Heime for later if you really need to buff something over the weather. We have the Clan Dunman Pirates. This just gives you additional discards. These will, if you only have 1 in your opening hand, you play 1, the other 2 come out of your deck. That's 2 less cards you have to worry about trying to dig for Siri. We have the Priestess of Freya, which is fundamental in pretty much any Skellige list. These are really powerful targeted resurrections. They're just really awesome. You play them, you pull whichever bronze card you want out of the graveyard. As long as it's not permadeath, you can resurrect it. There's not much to be said. You basically, the targets for these are going to be your shieldsmiths as often as possible, as well as you can target your archer in order to deal with cows, and you can also target your Heime Skald if you need to in order to buff just to get extra power in the last round. You have your Shieldsmiths. Shieldsmiths are basically used to buff Roach and or Morkvarg, depending on which one you have on the board. Generally, you want to buff Roach if you can, because Roach comes out at full strength, whereas Morkvarg loses strength. While at the same time, you do want to buff Morkvarg at least once or twice, just to make sure that Morkvarg doesn't actually die going into the last round, because each turn it loses 2 strength. We have the Borkvar Archer, and he does 1 damage to 3 different units. You'll notice that this unit can actually target things on your side of the board, which is the reason why there's 1 of them in the deck. Generally, you can discard this, you can discard your Heime, and you can discard your Armorsmith, because of you have so many Resurrects in this deck that you can actually just use it as a target to pull it up exactly when you need it. This is mainly used to remove cows, is probably the only reason that it's in the deck. As a removal tool for cows, it's very powerful. It puts down another 5 strength thing on the board. It removes the cow, makes it a little bit more difficult for your opponent to try to land the cow in the next round. And then we have Azul's Thunder. Again, just like if you watched the Dwarf deck tech, Azul's Thunder is really important. It goes in almost every single list nowadays. It's really good for removing key threats, longships, dwarves, all kinds of different other things. Going into the silver cards, we have Roach. Roach is actually really amazing in Skellige because of the fact that it thins your deck, first of all, which is really what the deck is designed around. Second of all, it gets buffed every single round because of the Skellige passive. The Skellige passive allows you to gain 1 strength for all of your units, regardless of where they are. They can be in your hand, in the graveyard, or in the deck. And at the beginning of each round. So it happens twice over the course of the entire round. So on the last turn, Roach is actually worth 5, not just 3. So you get 3 in the first round, 4 in the second round, 5 in the last round. That's 12 points over the whole game. That makes Roach more powerful than a standard silver card, while at the same time it provides deck thinning. This is an amazing card. If you happen to have one, make sure you jam it in there. We have Morkvarg. Morkvarg is key to the deck. Morkvarg is one of your discard targets. When you discard him, he just comes right onto the board immediately. You buff him, you buff him, you buff him, you buff him. Your opponents can't remove him. The big thing about Morkvarg is that you can't really kill him. You have to invest so many resources to kill him multiple times, because each time he dies, he loses 2 strength and comes back on the board. You do that again, he loses 2 strength, he comes back on the board. If you try to kill him 3 times in the first round, which is the most efficient time to try to kill him, you have to do 6 to the first time, 4 in the second time, 2 in the last time. That's 12 damage over the entire, or over 3 turns, just to remove a 7 strength unit from the board. So you're throwing away 5 extra damage, you're throwing away a lot of versatility and removing other threats. If somebody's crazy enough to try to remove Morkvarg, you probably win the game because they've just used too many resources. So basically people have to just ignore him. And then you can just like buff him like crazy with Shield Smiths, and then he is just like this really big powerhouse that hits the board on the last round, coupled with Roach, which will also hit the board, although Roach is easier removed. It depends on what your matchup is, whether you want to be buffing Roach or Morkvarg. But these are your 2 buff targets. We have Sigdrifa. Sigdrifa is arguably one of the best resurrects in the game. Shawnee maybe a little bit better, just because gold power, depending on what's going on with the match. But Sigdrifa is targeted resurrection, gains +1 every time something else gets resurrected. It is a fundamentally amazing card and really, really good in Skellige. If you don't have this card, you should craft it if you want to play Skellige. Yeah, so and it also can res silvers, so you can use it to res Savrange again. I guess that's probably your only real res target that you might want to res with Sigdrifa. We are also running Restore. Restore allows you to res Sigdrifa, which allows you to res something else, so that's a really nice res chain that's built into Skellige. It also adds 2 to the base strength of whatever you restore, so that can help you if you want to try to avoid Igni or just generally throw extra power on the board. Generally, you want to use Sigdrifa before you use Restore. Restore is the one you want to use last. So you use Priestess of Freya, then you use Sigdrifa, then you use Restores, or use Sigdrifa first if it's the last round and you want to gain extra strength on it. Anyway, it's a little bit sort of variable, but this is the last one that you want to use. We have Savrange. Savrange is a discard mechanic. You play him on the board. He's 4 strength, draw 1 card, discard 1 card. The cards you want to be discarding, you want to discard your Archer, you want to discard your Armor Smiths, you want to discard your Raiders, and your Heime. Basically, you're just trying to thin your deck with him. You can play him twice, so he's worth 2 discards using Sigdrifa. You can play him a 3rd time if you really want to restore Sigdrifa into Savrange, if you really need to. If you only have 1 card left in your deck and you really need that Siri Dash to pull out the last 19 points you need, it gives you a little bit of flexibility for digging in your deck. We have Earmoin, one of the most powerful gold cards in the game. Draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards. It's Last Wish with the 6-body gold card on. It's just phenomenal. It's a really good card. Last Wish is a legendary. This is an epic. If you want to play Skellige, this is one of the cards you definitely want to craft. It's super duper good. We have Deuterium Bomb. Deuterium Bomb's basically just used for dwarves. I wouldn't really save it for anything else. It's also okay against consume monsters, but generally consume monsters doesn't line up. There's usually something strong here, there, in middle row and in the front row, and then they'll move everything into the back into the Katakan, which will make the Deuterium Bomb useless. But this is primarily just to remove all the strength from dwarves when it's really critical in the last round. We got Azul's Thunder. Oh, no, we already talked about that. Then we also have, so for our golds, we've already talked about Earmoin. We have Igni. Igni is really nice flexible removal. This is probably the only real flex spot in terms of golds, I would say, for this deck. You can put in Coral, you can put in something else. Arguably, Igni is better than Coral just because you can hit the front row with it, and a lot of things stack in the front row. This deck's really good at punishing dwarves. Well, at the same time, it also gets wrecked by dwarves, so it just depends on how the cards come out. But it's very competitive for sure. So Igni is a 4-strength agile unit. Destroy the strongest known gold units if that row total is 20 or more. So you got to watch the totals, make sure that there's more than 20 strength, then you drop Igni, boom, blows up the opposing side of the board. Really nice card, really good removal. If they're tied, they remove both things. If you have like a row of, say, 3 Nilfgaard Knights, it's 33 points you remove from the board. It's amazing. Like, it's a really good power swing. You want to try to use Igni earlier rather than later. A lot of people get caught in the trap of holding on to Igni for the last round because they really want to make sure that they get that really big power swing in the last round. A lot of the times you're not going to hit Igni in the last round because people don't have that much power in the last round. They're not holding on to 60 power they're going to drop into the front row that you can nuke with Igni. They're going to do that in the first or the second round. So those 2 rounds are usually the rounds where you really want to try to like make sure you get maximum effect from Igni, because if you win the round with just playing Igni, especially if you're head on cards, it's totally worth it. If you're just dropping it as a 4-strength gold card in the last round, it's not really that good. So make sure you use Igni when you can. You can be a little bit greedy with it, but just make sure that you know what you're doing when you're doing that. We have Birna. Birna draws 3 cards, keep 1 and discard the rest. Really powerful, pulls 3 cards out of your deck. You get to keep 1 of them. You throw away the rest. This deck is designed about throwing a bunch of crap into the garbage. It's really good. If you want to play Skellige, you should also craft this card. Then we have Siri Dash. Siri Dash randomly places a deck. It gets randomly placed into your deck if you put it in the graveyard. So if it gets discarded, if you play it and it dies at the end of the round, it goes back into your deck. Gains +3 base strength. So basically what you want to be doing with Siri, this is the core of the deck, is every time you have the opportunity to discard Siri, you discard Siri. Every time you have Siri in your hand, you play Siri on the board, so Siri dies, she goes back to your deck, gets buffed. And then using all of the discard mechanics in the game or in your deck, you actually manage to top deck Siri as the last card in your deck at the very end, or at the very beginning of the third round. And you got like a 15, 19 point Siri, sometimes you can get up to 22. Really, really strong. Just drop it on the board. Your opponent, especially if it's in top deck mode where you're top decking versus your opponent, 22 gold power generally is going to win the game, especially if you forced all the cards out of your opponent's hand. So winning the first round really helps a lot with this deck. But that's basically sort of the whole core of the deck. We're going to look at the... sorry, that's the whole deck, rather. We're going to look at the core. So this is the discard core deck. If you want to run this deck, these are the cards that you absolutely must have in order to make a version of this deck work. Unfortunately, you won't be able to make the Siri Dash version work unless if you have Siri Dash, and you probably are still going to want some more of the legendaries in there to make that work really well. You can make a really nice budget version of this deck using Longships and really focusing on buffing Morkvarg. But Morkvarg is going to be the only legendary that you really have to worry about crafting. For those of you who don't know, maybe you're not sure, the border of the card doesn't determine the rarity. This is a silver legendary. You see in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little gold thing. That means that it's a legendary. This one's a common because it's white. Sigdrifa is an epic because it's purple. I don't think there's any other rares in this deck. But you can see they all have different icons. There's a rare. So the blue ones are rares. So even though it's not a gold card, it's still a legendary card. Costs you 800 scraps. It's pretty expensive. But if you really want to play discard Skellige, this is probably the card that you want to craft for it. So you want the Heimei, the Armorsmith, and the Archer as targets for discard. The Heimei could theoretically be swapped out for another Archer, could be swapped out for another Armorsmith. If you don't have that, you could probably plop in an extra Raider in here because they're fine for targeting for discards. Another alternative card that is really nice in discard Skellige that you don't see in the list that I had before is Donar. Donar is also another discard mechanic. It's a spy, so sometimes it's a liability, but generally is really good. Use him to discard some more stuff. And then you also have to have the Priest of Freya, you have to have Sigdrifa, you have to have Restore, so that's 5 different Restores in your deck. You definitely want that for any Skellige list you're going to be playing, so if you're crafting those cards, I wouldn't feel bad about it if you're interested in playing Skellige. They work well in Axeman Skellige. They work well in Longship discard. They work well in regular Siri Dash discard. I think they probably work really well in Cambi Helmar discard if you really want to be doing the memes. if you're going to try to run Wild Boar of the Sea, you're probably going to still want these cards in your deck. So I wouldn't feel bad about crafting them ever. And then, of course, you have to have the shield makers because they're just critical to the deck. And Irmoin, again, because he's only an epic, definitely worth crafting if you're interested in Skellige. So we're just going to jump into a game here. Just playing casuals to show how the deck works. Oopsie, that is the discard core deck. So I haven't actually played a huge amount of this list. Discard Skellige is not really my favorite list. It's really super consistent though. So if you're interested in a list that's very consistent, if you watch Life Coach, I believe Life Coach is running a version of this deck. A few other the bigger streamers are also running versions of this deck. This deck can easily take you to the top like 500 people. It's really quite powerful. So we have Birna, we have Igni. We want to hold on to Igni. We don't really need the Archer. Well, we're playing against Nilfgaard, so we'll hold on to the Archer. We'll get rid of the Armor Smith. We got Markvarg. We don't want Markvarg. Let me throw back the Haymaker. Or Haymay. So unfortunately we pulled a Raider, which is not ideal, but that's okay.
What do you need me to do?
What do you need me to do? So in this list, you're not setting up long ships. You're just going straight into discard. So just
set at my table,
Bran, discard the Raider, discard the Morkvarg. If you don't have a good target for discarding at this point, then what you're going to want to do is pick the least valuable thing, which is going to be the probably the Armor Smith's probably going to be useful. So that might not be, but Nilfgaard tends to be control, so they'll probably damage my rows. So being able to resurrect that will probably be helpful. So looks like he's going to be rallying. Steals my Armor Smith. Unfortunately, this deck does get screwed a lot by the medics.
The sea provides.
Luckily, he didn't steal a really critical target, and there really isn't any super critical targets in this list. It's just annoying when people do that, more than anything else. So we'll throw it on Birna. We're going to take the Pirate and let Roach go into the garbage. We're probably going to pass here. So we didn't win the first round because we didn't have enough cards to be thinning our deck properly. What you really want in your opening hand is Irmoin. You want a Pirate. Alright, so that's a pretty good draws for us. So we play the Pirates, we play all the Clanmen to try and buff, we play Irmoin to discard some more, and we just keep on plugging away. Hopefully we can find our Siri Dash soon, so we can discard her or at least play her. So always use your Pirate before you use any of the draw spells if you can help it. So he's using the old Vigilfort's Roach technique to play extra power onto the board. This generally is very nice power swing for people. We're gonna buff the Morkvarg first. A little bit scared of him getting killed. And we're always watching out for any Igni opportunity.
Notice! All roads lead to Nilfgaard.
All roads lead to Nilfgaard. All right.
Give us all you got!
Let's play a Pirate. There's the cow. So, if he throws another cow at that, I'm okay with it. We're going to use the Archer for now. And this is specifically why the Archer is in the list. Just because it denies cow value. So he's going to do it again. Throws it into the back row. Unfortunately, this is a fair amount of power for him to be hitting, so we're going to actually Thunder the cow. He decoyed the Rot Tosser, so it tells me he probably doesn't have another one, because decoy is more valuable than Rot Tosser. Oh, never mind. So we'll play the Priestess of Freya.
Mordred Freya is patient, but she brooks no insult.
We'll throw up another Armor Smith.
What? Should I pound it into
There's a pretty good chance. Oh, he has an Arbalist in his hand, so he's going to Arbalist the Priestess of Freya. Cow goes off. I misplayed that a little bit. I should have just let the 12 die and done something different. Like Irmoin.
I can help you if you wish.
But that's okay. We got Sigdrifa, got a Priestess of Freya. So when you're down to your last discards, always keep your Priestess of Freya over your other bronze units, because you can always resurrect your bronze units. We're not super far behind. We need him to play something in the front or the back row so we can get a good Igni off, and that should win the round for us.
My prescription, a bit of blood.
So now we don't have any really good targets for him. If I was him, I probably would have taken the archer, because it stops the rot tossers. He might only have 2 rot tossers. I'm going to be doing a video on the Nilfgaard, which I call Beef Guard, list, and they only run 2 rot tossers, which I always thought you run 3, but that is my mistake. So we are going to resurrect the archer here.
By Heimdall's axe!
We're gonna hit that one, and then we'll just do some incidental damage into the back. We're setting up for an Igni here. There's 12 points on the board right now.
Praise be to the great sun!
That's a pretty big Nilfgaard knight. I think Igni's probably our best play here. It's worth 12 points.
Damn it.
Oops, it's worth 14 in the front. That was a mistake. So I don't play this deck very often, and that was clearly a mistake, but that's okay. So this goes base strength 13, so it goes up 1. This one goes down 3. So it's only worth 4 points. He's trying to force the cards out of my hand. We're gonna just Priestess of Freya here.
Bow before modern Freya.
Got an
Out
Armor
with the crimes.
Smith.
Come on, quick now.
Probably gonna have to Sigdrifa here. So worth 4.
The goddess
We really want to
protect you
hold
from all evil.
our
Billion barrels of burning pitch.
D-bomb. I mean, sorry, we really want to hold our restore into the last round, if at all humanly possible.
My men know the meaning of sacrifice.
Unfortunately, he's pressuring us quite hard, and we might not actually be able to power out through this. We need our Siri Dash. We didn't draw our Siri Dash, and that will probably lose the game for us. Haymaker is worth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 12 extra points, plus the power from him. He stole my Haymaker, though. Yeah, he did. Oh no, it's in my deck. Alright, let's discard it.
Sit at my table and let's drink.
There is no escape.
Okay, so what's the best target here? This is going to go down by 1. This is going to go up by 3, so that's only worth 2. This is worth a substantial... It's worth 4. So I guess we D-bomb here. Well, let's figure out if I need to D-bomb. So if I restore the Heime... So that's worth 6. Then I get 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So that's 18 points. So that puts me at 75. So I still need the D-bomb regardless. Oops, I should have hit the Morkvard. That was only worth 2 points. That was a... I think I lose the game because of that. Oh, I could have resurrected him and then discarded it instead of the D-bomb, and then I would have got Siri Dash. That would have also worked as well.
Don't you pester me.
Oh, no. Okay, so my mistake at least didn't lose me the game, but it was a pretty big mistake. And our opponent conceded. So there's a little bit more of the nuance. There's a lot more nuance to playing that deck than I'm showing in this deck. This is just sort of like a brief overview. I'm not super duper familiar with all of the ins and outs of the deck, but hopefully that gives you sort of like a core idea of how the deck works. Again, if you're interested in budget lists, there's going to be a link in the description for the budget core, and you could also like dump longships, do a bunch of other things as well. But you'll see at the end of the game, the last card in my deck was Siri Dash, so I would have drawn a Siri Dash, and we would have been in top deck war, and I would have won. I also could have gotten the Siri Dash if I had played that last line correctly. So there was a mistake on my end, but again, one thing I really like about the game of Gwent is that usually you can figure out exactly where you went wrong, and because it's all just simple math, you just figure out where you did the math wrong. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. You can also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/moxfiregaming, or you can catch me on Twitch. I stream from 10 p.m. to 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. Pacific Standard Time normally, Sunday through Thursday. That's twitch.tv/moxfiregaming. Until next time, thanks again for tuning in. I hope you all have yourself a fabulous day, and cheers.